I'm always up early. You know me. I tried to do jobs again yesterday, and I ended up back in bed, in pain. So I just called quits. But now I'm up again at night. My shoulder keeps coming out its socket whilst I'm asleep, and I keep waking up with my shoulder half out its socket, hurting, which ain't great. So it's making it difficult. But anyway, I didn't come here to moan. It's the way it is. Yesterday, I had a lovely gentleman approach me for the second time. He knows I need my trees doing. I was not going to be able to do it until remortgaging, but given what's happening with work, it's kind of, the tree stuff is kind of being put on the back burner till then. I can't touch it till I remortgage, and work's impacting all of this stuff. So I had a good chat with him, and everybody's struggling, and people just need money to live, right? But at the same time, people don't have the same amount of money to give for services, okay? So it's becoming a old-fashioned negotiate a deal situation. The guy is absolutely lovely, and I'm hoping he's going to come with his uncle. Just going to put this out there. We've always had a close relationship to the travelling community to a degree. We are Roman and Gypsy descent, but we get a lot of Irish travellers coming round, and we've always been friendly with them. My mama used to go see them and take the rubbish and whatnot when they used to camp close by. Times have changed compared to old-fashioned travellers. It's not like that anymore. So you it's just the equivalence of being wary of everybody. But I operate the old-fashioned way, and the lad that came to see me also operates the old-fashioned way, and he's looking to make some money and to be trusted, and he's going to do it with his uncle. And I am looking to get my trees done sooner rather than later, so that it's not a massive weight on my shoulders anymore, because there's a telegraph pole there, and I'm a corner property, and it hangs over the road, and it panics me, and it has done for the past 8 years. So we've struck up a deal, and he's going to come Monday. I am it's a good job. When I budget contingencies. It means other places are going to go without or go with less, but it's doable. So I've managed to get it for less than half price what I would have been getting it for if I'd have gone to my usual guy. He is a busy guy, and it's really difficult to get him. He's really good. He's lovely and friendly. He lives down the road, but I know he will not take it personally if I go to somebody else cheaper. He's got a million other people that he services, including like school grounds and all sorts. He's very reputable. And in a normal economy, he would be very reasonably priced. But life isn't like that at the moment. And with how strong the winds have been, I want to get it done. So I've got it scheduled in, and the lad is very, very appreciative for me trusting him. He seems old-fashioned style. I will make a point to spend more time with him on Monday and be there whilst he's doing it with his uncle, especially with him doing it so cheap. Not only do I want to watch, just to make sure for my own well-being, but I also want to help because he's doing it for dirt cheap. And I wished I could give him a whole lot more, and I can't. And it makes me frustrated because people are worth their time, and I don't like taking things off people for free. I don't like having people help me for free. Someone's time and energy isn't free. I feel conflicted about it, but it's the situation I'm in. And this is how I felt during COVID as well, when I was taking things from people for free and they were coming to help me, but vice versa, I've done it for loads of other people. Do you know what I mean? With food parcels and all sorts of fucking shit. You know what I mean? Fencing, clothes, baby stuff. And they felt the same way. You know, you can't help but feel it is a British thing to feel embarrassed and ashamed and guilty for having to accept support, which is really fucking shocking. It's shocking that we feel that way. Shouldn't feel that way at all. It swings and roundabouts all the time. When you're up, that's when you can help people who are down. And at some point, you're going to be down and they're going to be helping you. You know what I mean? So I'm grappling with my own inner English pride, because I am technically English as well. As I say, we're a bit more watered down, but the way I'm looking at it is, I've got a traveller providing a service who needs the money, and he's going to find it very difficult at the moment to find work. And I am also gypsy descent, and I am struggling in society, in mainstream society, and I need these jobs doing. And we're both going to help each other. Do you know what I mean? We're both parting and doing things that's going to stretch us, but also help each other, if you know what I mean. We're both flexible enough to meet each other in the middle on this. So it's going to get done. And in the long run, that's going to help me loads when it comes to remortgage, for obvious reasons. I won't need to take out so much money in equity to get it done. So that's something that got sorted yesterday. But I am going to be very, very short. I'm going to be skint. Like more skint than before. It's doable. I've got a lot of phone calls to make today. I've got the doctors to go to. I want to talk about this as well. So I've been on contraception since I was 14, and I've tried lots of different ones. I'm on a pill where you take it every single day and you don't have your period. Reason being, I already have disabilities where I'm in a lot of pain. I should have known before I got diagnosed that it was a problem back then. But basically, period pains they make me bedridden. They're extremely bad, and they make me want to not be here. Okay, so I deliberately have a pill that makes it so I can't have periods, to just not deal with it at all. Okay, it keeps my body constant. It removes that element where I would otherwise be bedridden. Okay, I've got to go sort that today, but I need to ask some questions. I have found out that there's some news last year. It was really difficult to get my contraception last year. I don't know what was going on. I couldn't get the full amount. They gave them to me in bits, and there was arguing in the pharmacy about the people's stuff that they needed. And I remember the pharmacist saying to the lady, there's only one company that makes these products and they've discontinued it. And she says, well, where else can I get it? And she just didn't understand that there's only one manufacturer and it doesn't exist anymore. Do you know what I mean? And she was shouting at him saying, well, I'm going to go to your manager. There's got to be somebody. Give me somebody. I need to. She just could not understand that there is only one manufacturer and it's discontinued. So you won't be able to get it at all ever. Do you know what I mean? All of that last year worried me a lot. Not only that, they changed it so that you couldn't pick up your prescription same day. So I couldn't go to the doctor's and then move next door as soon as I'd finished there with my prescription and then go pick up my tablets and just wait and get them same day. They've made it 5 working days. And again, situation where elderly lady in a wheelchair had been pushed down by a friend. They'd scheduled it because they didn't live together, just so that she could go down and get it. Obviously, she was under the assumption, go to the doctors, go to the chemist, pick them all up on the same day. She was also out of whatever medication it was that she needed. She was told there and then that she would have to schedule coming back in 5 working days because they can't give it to her same working day anymore. And she says, well, I'm already out of medications. I need them today. That's why I'm down here today. I can't come down here on my own. I'm in a wheelchair. It wasn't an electric one. It was a manual one. She couldn't push herself. She had to rely on a friend, which is why she's scheduled it. It was a whole palaver. All of these things worry me. This is why when I order my pain relief, I go down alternative routes. I pay more to buy mine from online pharmacies and get them delivered within 1 or 2 days. And I make sure to have enough in. And I have lots of different varieties of pain relief in lots of different forms. So, like I've told you before, I weaned off everything anyway. And I'm not allowed ibuprofen because nobody should be touching ibuprofen ever. It is so bad. Anything out of the ibuprofen family, nobody should be touching those. I'll do a video on that another day. Basically, paracetamol is like the go-to, and then Solpadeine, which is codeine and paracetamol, but it's a weaker strength than the ones that the doctors would push you. So at the doctors, you would have 15 milligram codeine or 30 milligram codeine with 500 milligram paracetamol. These ones at the chemist, you can get 12.5 milligram codeine or 8 milligram codeine with 500 milligram paracetamol. Okay, so those in the online pharmacy, the reason why you can buy them online is because they are of a weaker strength. They are still addictive, but they are a weaker strength, and I'm not willing to be stuck on tons of medications, strong strengths again, and being addicted to them. It was never my intention in the first place. They put me on them, and I've come off them, and I'm not willing to go down that route again. The 12.5 milligram tablets, I actually half those, so I don't have full tablets. I will bite it in half, which means it's only 6.25 milligrams. So I am literally rationing everything, and I make sure that I've got a ton of paracetamol in, and again, you can bulk buy those. And I also have a ton of, like your flu sachets with your paracetamol in and your other bits and bobs. There is no restriction on paracetamol flu sachets that you mix with hot water. There are restrictions on paracetamol because you can pop them all out and you can overdose. That's why they put restrictions on these things, okay? It's also why they make them very difficult to get out the fucking packet. But your powders, you can't have those powders without mixing them with water because it's absolutely disgusting. They're like lemon flu sachets. You can't OD on those. So you can buy as many as you want of those to have a form of pain relief. Okay. The other thing, antihistamine, again, you can bulk buy those. So I usually buy a year's worth to make sure that I've got enough. My concern, obviously, has impacted the way I try and get what I need. I do alternative stuff, so I will have supplements. I will have CBD oil. I will have CBD balm. I will utilise heat and cold therapies. I will Epsom salts, right? I will do everything in my power to make sure I don't need to take medications, okay? But when it comes to contraception, I've got a few things that's going on in my head and I need to have this conversation with them. So, I've had the injection contraception where you have it every 3 months. That made me gain weight so fast. And the doctor was very sketchy and did something he shouldn't have done whilst my mum was in the room and we had to report it. He didn't work there for long, let me put it that way. If I miss this tablet, even just one day, I start getting pains, really bad pain, obviously. So, and with the fact that I found out last year, there was news on it that it had been discontinued because they've been doing tests on it and it was causing tumours in the brain or something like that. I can't go into too much detail without having it in front of me, but to the effect of, it was discontinued during this period where I couldn't get all my medications at that time and they couldn't give me the full amount because it was causing tumours on the brain. I've only just found that information and I need to talk to them about that because I want to know if it's safe or true and why I've not been told about it. The next concern I've got is supply. If we go into a war and we're in a war, supply chains for everything's going to be affected, okay? What that means is I might not be able to get my contraception, okay? And then I'm going to suffer a lot with pain and it's going to come at me full force because I've been on these for, 22 years, okay? That's a big concern for me. Excuse my thing, it's still healing. I've got a few other concerns. You can actually buy this contraception online if you want to. So again, everything has a cost if you want a stock of it. So prescriptions here on the NHS, contraception is free. And you do your consultation where they check up on you every year, just to see if everything's all right. And they give you your yearly's worth. And that's it. Okay. What if I need to shift and move very at short notice? I like to have bags packed. I've got a few different bags packed dependent on circumstances, and even when I leave the house I tend to take certain things with me because you never know wherever you go what's going to happen. I want to have the conversation with them about what happens if it discontinues or I can't get my stock. And that's more than likely going to contribute to my surety that I need to factor in buying extra contraception stock, which is going to cost money. And I've talked to you about money already. So I'm going to have to figure out where I'm going to do some odd jobs or something. Don't know. I'll figure it out down the line. I'm thinking worst case scenario. If you think worst case scenario, then you're covered for everything, right? It's not a bad thing to be critically think, okay? It's really good to think worst case scenario because then it might not be that bad and you've got all this extra stuff, you know, that's not a bad thing. But if it is that bad, thank fuck I fucking planned for it, right? So I am more than likely going to have to buy some contraception in. Buy. Stressing the word buy. I don't have to buy contraception. I get it for free. I get yearlies free, right? But given the fact that it was potentially discontinued last year and there's all this stuff going on, I might need to change completely if it causes tumours and it's not safe. Like, I need to think about these things. But I also want to make sure that I've got contraception for the long term, no matter what. And I need to check expiry dates and that type of stuff if I go down the route of buying them. Okay. I am talking about this because these are things that women and young girls don't think about till it's too late. Okay. And I don't want that to happen to anybody. I've had 2 instances in my life where 2 men on 2 separate occasions, not related in any way, did things to me that I didn't consent to, right? And that makes me think about all these things all the time, okay? I don't want, as a disabled person, I have never wanted a child with a disabled parent whereby they would miss out or get less or have to have a compromised life or even have to look after me because I chose to have kids despite the fact that I'm disabled, right? I am not judging anybody else for doing what they're doing. It's their life. I'm saying me personally, that's my choice, okay? I also need to factor in the fact that people do bad things even when you don't want them to. So contraception won't stop somebody doing bad things to you. They will still do it if they want to do it, and you can't stop them if they're stronger than you. But my thought is, at least if I'm on contraception, I won't be burdened with a child during a war where I'm struggling to work anyway because I've got disabilities and I've got odds stacked up against me. And it's not just me I need to look after now or worry. I've got extra things on my health to worry about if I'm pregnant. And if that child does survive, I would need to figure out how to support me and that child. Okay, that child is brought into extreme suffering from a fucking horrible circumstance that was nobody's fault. I don't want that. I don't want that for myself. I don't want that for the kid. And so if something does happen to me, then at least it won't potentially involve bringing in a new life to the world in the current circumstances and perpetuate more suffering for somebody, for another human being. Okay? And because I'm thinking about these things, I need to have the conversation of hysterectomy. This is also a cause for concern for me because I am of the belief that your body is the way it is for a reason and you shouldn't tinker with it too much, right? I do believe God gave things for a reason. God made things and it was good. It was good. Yeah, not perfect. It was good. It functions. It's not perfect. It's in his image. It's not perfect, but it works. Okay? When we start playing God and tinkering with stuff, we can fuck it up. And I am very concerned that if I went down the hysterectomy route, that it would do much more damage to me than good. And so I need to have these conversations to explore my options. And I'm having this honest conversation on here because there's women and children that don't think about these things. They're preoccupied with lots of other things. In Britain at the moment, everywhere at the moment, there are women and children that are being subject to bad people doing bad things to them. And having these conversations is important. It will not stop somebody doing something bad to me, but it will make sure that an extra life isn't produced and or suffering as a result. So I've got to have those conversations today. and I feel sorry for the children in my family. This is why I'm working very hard to make sure, even if I don't have my own kids, that there is hopefully potentially something for them down the line, and it's not as hard for them. Just because I don't want kids and I've made that choice, that does not mean I don't care about children or love the children. So I'm going to have those conversations very early this morning. And then from there, I've got phone calls to make about work, to get some more support, because I feel stagnant and in the dark. And then I need to look at other ways for me to bring in extra income where I can do it from home because of my disabilities. And one of the main things I'm going to be looking at is the website Fiverr, and I'm sure loads of people have heard about it. It's called Fiverr, and it's freelance work. Basically, I'm lucky enough that I've got skills. I can pretty much do all sorts of stuff, and I'm a dab hand at drawing, amongst other things. So I can get some money in from somewhere, I'm sure. Okay. CVs are already sorted. I've paid for professional ones to be done, and they're up, ready, and sat there, visible for people to see. I'm doing everything. Like I say, you plan for the worst, right? Plan for the worst, hope for the best. Always. I'm being very frugal with my food already, as I've said. Me sitting here in my circumstances has made me think of pubs again. So public houses. There's been a big uproar in UK about shutting all the public houses and them not having enough money to stay open, and why they're important. Okay, because they're being replaced by officing. The buildings are being redirected to be convenience stores, office spaces, spaces for migrants. Yeah, they're the main three things. Or they're left vacant because the owner of the building don't want to get rid of it and hand it over, and then it becomes a drug den, a weed production facility and what have you. That's interesting. Someone's a horticulturist. That's nice to know. You've got to laugh about stuff. Anyway, public houses, when they originally open, it's in the name. It's a house, that somebody's house that they opened up to the public. Okay, and what they did was they opened it to the public and say, you can stay here, we've got rooms, we've got bedding, we've got toiletries, we can feed you, we can water you, it will cost you. Okay, so if you need short notice, cheap places to bed down and just rest and eat during travels, or if you're homeless, that's what a public house was. Okay, it was a cheap place back in the day. You couldn't drink the water because it was full of bacteria and germs and make you sick. So you go drink beer in your pub, and sit down with your mates and stay nice and warm. You've got to remember, a bunch of people in a room, loads of body heat, and there's a fire in there. You know, it's cost effective. A public house was cost effective to run and to go to. Okay, it meant that you weren't lonely on the street, you were fed, you were dry, you were watered, you know, you got a bed. Public houses were an important thing. Then the government kicked in and started doing policies, procedures, regulations, laws, and made it a commercial food and drink space rather than a proper public house. So you had it split off into two. You had bed and breakfast, and you had your pub where you go eat and drink. You would never stay. It's very rare now that you get a pub with lodging attached to it anymore. You can still get the old ones. There is some old ones that's still knocking about in some nice places. But they are few and far between. They don't exist in my town anymore. The pub that I worked at used to be one of those. It's not that anymore. It's just food and drink. And then the landlord lives above in all the rooms. So they've got the 13 plus rooms that could otherwise bring in a ton of money. But that's because he doesn't own it. He leases it from a company. A company owns that pub. They lease it out to a manager runs it. They don't, the company that owns it don't want the bed and breakfast aspect, which is a shame really, because you're limiting your income. But anyway, there's going to be a lot of people that can't afford gas and electric. And I've talked to you about this before. We had lots of elderly, lots of homeless, lots of people who were out of work due to disability and long-term health issues and that type of thing. And they would come in and sit in all day because it was warm, it was dry, they weren't alone, they could get a drink, they could get some food. Even if they turned up with nothing, no money, they would help each other out, and friends would buy them a drink or buy them some food. Or I've got my own discretion as a bartender and working there. If I wanted to buy it for them, I could. Okay. And we keep everybody running, and then we make sure that they get home safe, and, you know, make sure that they sleep well and they actually make it home. There was an elderly gentleman who didn't want to go home. He was 90 something. He managed to make it in. I tried to walk with him, but he told me to go on without him and get his pint ready. But that night, it was a Saturday night, and he's usually out by then, and it was 10, 11 o'clock, and the disco had started, and all the young lot were coming in, and he was refusing to go home. And we got him sat in a chair, and we got him a taxi and paid for his taxi and got him home. And we didn't hear from him for a week. And then we found out he'd passed away. And he'd got no food, no gas, no electric. He was a lovely man. Granted, he were old, and I get that. But he knew what was going to happen if he went home, and they didn't want to go home. And if we still had bed and breakfast, he could have stayed with us at the pub. So while we go into war now, there's going to be lots of people that's displaced, that have no jobs, that have no money for gas, water or electric or food. And pubs are going to become really important again. Really important. The problem is they are going to be charging extortionate prices, and they are bound by policy, procedure and law. And quite a lot of these pubs nowadays will only let you stay if you're drinking and eating. Which again solidifies the need for the old-fashioned public house. You know, stop thinking about profit as much as you are, and think about your fucking community. You used to be part of your community. The pub used to be a fucking integral part of the fucking community. and it kept people alive. Seeing as all the pubs are shutting and what have you, and there's no places to stay anymore. I wonder where everyone's going to go. Yeah, that's something that I've not been able to find a fix for. I'm very good at finding solutions and routes to getting what you need. But I need to think about that one a bit more because I've not found a viable route. By which I mean there is no old-fashioned public houses anymore. And where that was very important back then, and it will be now, we don't have that. We used to have welfare clubs, social clubs. So you would have, it was a building, had a bar in it, food, very similar to a public house, but it was called, you'd have them for working men's clubs. So you'd have miners' welfare, or you'd have your social club for the local community. And these buildings served for the working men to go somewhere and socialise with each other and chill out for a bit, stay warm together because they were poor, eat, drink, have some time away from their wives and kids. And then you'd have social clubs where women and children would be able to come as well. Very similar to a public house, but not so centred around alcohol. Much more later than the old-fashioned public houses. So more 1900s than 1800s or 1700s, if that makes sense. So 1800s is your public house. Welfares and social clubs and bowling clubs and that type of stuff, they're 1900s. There are a handful of those that still exist. Many of them got knocked down or turned into something else. So again, like even that would be another option that I would think of, and it's not an option because they're not there. The only thing I can think of, if people are homeless and they don't have the money to pay for gas and electric and council tax and food and what have you, they can't pay for the full shebang. The only thing that I can think of that I've had to do myself, because I've talked to you about almost being homeless, I've had to do it myself, is long-term house sitting. And we've got a website here in UK, House Sitting UK. You can do pet sitting or house sitting or both, okay? And what you do is you look after somebody else's property with all their belongings in it, or their pets, whilst they're gone. You don't pay to stay there. So it's not you paying for lodging, you're there to do a job. So house sitting, you get to stay there for free. Negotiation on what you pay for and what you don't pay for is with that household. So if you're staying there long term, then you would be expected to pay the water, the gas, the electric, the internet connection, for example, and all your food and your toiletries and that type of stuff, because you need those yourself. They don't provide those. You're there using them, you pay for them. But you wouldn't pay rent, you wouldn't pay council tax, or anything like that, because you're doing a job. You are there to look after their property or their pets whilst they're gone. Okay, and it's not classed as being a lodger or a tenant or being a landlord. because at some point you will be coming back to that home, be it in the short term or down the line, you will be coming back to that home. Okay. You talk with that household on what you're going to pay, what you're not going to pay, what your duties are whilst you're there. That is the only route I can think of where a homeless person can have a roof over their head, gas, water, electric, toilet, bed, food. You would be able to take your minimal, amenities with you, your little bits with you, but you wouldn't be moving in. You wouldn't be staying there permanent. You would have to discuss with the homeowner, if you've got children and pets, on what they're willing to take and not take again. But it's a viable option, and it's viable because I've done it, and it is the only way to stay off the streets if you can't afford your own home. So house sitting is something that people need to look into, because it's a valid thing. Okay, and it's legal. I want to make this clear. All of this is legal. Yeah. If you have the ability to up sticks and move, and you don't mind staying in all these different houses for short term, for long term, and looking after somebody else's stuff or their animals, you can make money and save money while still living in a house without the rent or council tax charges or whatever charges that's going to be reduced when you negotiate with that household. Okay, that is the only thing I can think of. But again, that is not for everybody. If you've got children, if you've got animals, if you're elderly, if you're disabled, it might be an option, it might not. But you've got to look into it and see what you're willing to do. Are you willing to be homeless? Or in your own home, not able to pay for gas, water and electric and food. When you're house sitting, whoever owns the house cannot be in the house with you. Okay, because that's not classed as house sitting. They need to be away from the house for you to go in and a house sit. That's the whole deal. If they were to be in the house whilst, or come back whilst you were there, it starts to look a bit more like lodging and being a tenant, being a resident. And I want to just say that as well. So whoever's house it is, they have to stay away. Otherwise, they are going to be facing a lot of charges for being a landlord when they shouldn't be. Okay. This is a really serious video, and I know that, but we're in serious times and nobody talks about these things, and I think people need to talk about them. Plan for the worst, hope for the best. Everything has a price. You have to understand what you're willing to pay for, how much you're willing to pay, how important it is to you. We are entering a time where it's going to be trade-offs, and we're going to see a lot of businesses crumble, and government's going to try and crack down on people for doing all sorts of stuff. And I just want everyone to be careful. I want everyone to be safe. I want women and children to consider the same things that I'm having to consider, because I want them to be as safe as they can be. I don't want anybody out there being used and kept for services or a baby mill. Get good at defending yourself as well. Get good at defending yourself. And don't be apologetic about it. If people start judging you for it, yeah, because you've suddenly become very hardened and defensive, don't give a fuck. The moment you drop your guard, someone's going to do something. Someone, and that's the way you have to think. It's not a choice. You have to think like that to stay safe. I'm going to drink my coffee and go get a bath and get myself sorted for a very serious day. I hope all this information helps people. And thank you for listening to my own personal concerns. We're all in it together. We're all on this fucking planet together. Ain't none of us going to Mars yet. Let's get to it, shall we?